Does anybody have any question? The development of the human intellect or the development of knowledge has four stages. The first is the stage of gazing. That means development of human beings as being aware of what is going on. So in the stage of gazing, you look and don't make anything of it. Like cows, they gaze. You don't make anything of it. Second is you look and things are happening and you enter the age of superstition when you correlate cause and effect incorrectly. You're wearing bracelets on your wrist to give you good luck. This is insult to life. It's superstition. The next level is the stage of awareness, acute awareness. When you look at things and correlate cause and effect correctly, when it animates in you a sense of wonder and a sense of gratitude and a sense of inquiry. How are these things happening? At that point of time, you start becoming human. And when you see things happening, what is this unseen hand that has designed life the way it has designed? That is the stage of spiritual inquiry, scientific inquiry, and then spiritual inquiry. Sense of wonder and a sense of inquiry. And from that observation of life and providence, life is what you can observe, and providence is our gratitude and wonder for the unseen hand that has designed all this. Arises that sense of gratitude and wonder and inquiry. Now, once gratitude is animated, what will happen? Once you have a sense of gratitude towards anything, somebody or something, what will happen?
No complaints.
Number one is, gratitude itself is an effect of observation and acknowledgement. It's an effect. It doesn't come of its own accord. Effect of observation and acknowledgement of beneficial things that are happening to you or me. It's the effect. Once gratitude is animated, yes, next thing that will happen is you don't complain about inconveniences that come along with the benefit that you receive. Benefits are many, inconveniences are few. But you must be aware, just now the monsoon has started. If we are aware of the benefaction of monsoon, without that we'll all be dying. We will not complain about gutters overflowing and inconvenience that is caused when we have to personally walk in the rain. We won't complain. Yes, number one, it reduces complaint. What is the second thing it does? Next thing it does?
You automatically want to repay?
Correct. Correct. Wherever you see benefactor, wherever you acknowledge benefaction for yourself, to yourself, it animates in you the urge to pay back and not to complain. It animates in you, how do you pay back? How do you pay back benefactor?
Brother, one of them is by imbibing the knowledge and living by it. Correct.
How will you pay back your teachers who have invested so much in you when you went to school? How will you pay back your? Is you speaking to somebody or the mic is on or what is happening? How will you pay back your teacher or your coach? You pay back your teacher or your coach or your benefactor by imbibing and living his guideline, not by paying him money. Are you living what he has taught you, what you're supposed to stand up for? That's how you pay it back. You can't pay it back, so therefore you pay it forward. What can you pay your parents? What can you pay your teacher? You pay it forward. So life is if you understand this, life is an endless exercise in acknowledgement of debt and the urge to repay, which you don't see as a repayment. You see it as a courtesy, that obligation that you have, because nobody wants your service. You're not needed, but you are anxious to do your two bit. That is the dignity of human being. The attitude of gratitude, from which emanates the attitude of urge to repay without any strings attached, because you already owe, out of a sense of fair play. Now, all of us have gratitude. All of us have a sense of fair play. All of us have a sense of debt. All of us have a sense of being true to our, not betraying somebody who is, or something that is loyal to us. All of us have. But the problem is we are dull. We don't acknowledge. We are not aware. So therefore, we don't show these attributes. You will show the attribute only if you acknowledge and you're aware of benefaction. Why you're not aware of benefaction? Why you're not aware of benefaction means blessing, service given to you unasked. Why you're not aware?
We take it for granted.
Right, you take it for granted, and there is too much of it splashed. There's abundance of it, too much of it. We are neutralized to it. We are neutralized to, we are neutralized to sight. So who is thankful of sight? You get thankful of sight when your eye becomes, when there is mucormycosis, whatever it is, the eye is in jeopardy. You blink and it hurts you, then you become aware. When your stomach starts gurgling, then you become aware of this mystery and wonder of digestion. Otherwise, you're not aware, because what is there? It's all over the place. Oxygen is everywhere. It's only when your lungs can't take it in, it's there, you can't take it in, then you become aware. So I tell you again that all of us are body conscious. You should be, in a positive sense, you should be aware of the miracle of the body. It's staying with you and tolerating all your nonsense all through life. But we are not, if you are aware of benefaction, how much will be your gratitude? On scale of 10.
It would be 10 on
Something is
10.
loyal to you, 10 out of 10. What will be your sense of fair play for something that has been beneficial to you?
Of course, 10 on 10.
Will you betray the person's trust for somebody who is loyal and beneficial to you?
No.
No, you will not. What is this?
Watermelon.
It's a watermelon. What is the weight?
Around 3
Approximately.
kilos.
Huh?
3 kilos.
2.5.
3 kgs.
2.5 to 3 kilos. Correct. What is the weight of your head?
1 kilo.
5 kilos. What is 1 kilo? The head weighs 1 kilo. You will be a moron, man. The weight of your head is 5 kilos. It is 14 pounds. On what does it rest? Your head.
On your body, which is another 50 kilos.
What?
On your neck and your
Neck.
body.
There are two bones on your spine on which holds the pivots the head, and there are about 3 or 4 muscles which hold it. You understand? Now I am holding this watermelon in my hand, in my wrist. What is going to happen if I rock it? What's going to happen to my wrist?
You can sprain it and it'll topple.
I will sprain it, correct, and I cannot hold it. I have already held it for 1 minute. I'm getting fatigued, and it is half the weight of my head. My head is 5 kilos. Happily, I move it this way, that way. When I do yoga, I rock it. I rock it. Neck does not sprain, and it stays with me rest of my life. And it's held by 2 or 3 muscles and 2 little bones on the spine. They hold it up. Who has engineered? Where is the awareness? We don't know. So we take for granted. Like that, it is endless. It's not that we lack in gratitude, we lack in awareness. That is the point I'm trying to make. If you are aware of all that is happening, you will be ashamed of how much you're taking for granted. And you will be ashamed of the fact that you are not being fair by taking everything and on top of it complaining. You're not being fair. That is the central point from which your mind itself will cooperate. Your mind itself has a sense of fair play and wants to be grateful and wants to be paid. But you must animate that gratitude. That's where we left it last. Attitude of gratitude is required. We don't know. So we are not grateful. We are not grateful to this body. So we put into it any kind of junk. We are not grateful for metabolism. So we compromise it. Because we are not aware of this great wonder. So we compromise it. When you play with your children, what do they love? When you play physically with your children, what do they love?
Tickling them. They like being tickled.
Their
Huh?
company.
No, company, no doubt. But when you play with them physically, they like to be swung around. No, you hold them by the hand and you twirl them around.
Yeah.
You twirl them around like a merry-go-round, is it not? And the child is screaming with laughter, is it not? You follow what I'm saying? You're holding him by the hand and you're twirling the fellow around. How come
Yes, sir.
he doesn't, what is it called, come out of his socket? Do you know the amount of pressure you're putting when you're swinging the child around with his hands? It is centrifugal force you're activating on the child. How come his body doesn't fall out of the socket? You're taking for granted. And now you've achieved a dysfunctional body. You have abused it to point of fault. There is zero gratitude. And yet you're a person of gratitude. You're a person of fair play. You're not showing the gratitude, not showing fair play because you're not aware. You're just callous. And you say that I am not callous in areas where I have received benefits. So this is because you are living an age of gazing. You're just looking, not registering. So this is the first thing that Swamiji is writing in the Elements of Right Living. Your first obligation is to wake up and see how much is beneficial to you. Forget about being beneficial to others. And when you understand that, then you will understand that you cannot survive without everybody else's support. And your whole life requires that somebody service your need. And your need is the opposite person's burden. It's not your privilege. Therefore, you are obligated to serve whoever it is that is serving you, because your need is the opposite person's burden. You will not do what is other people are doing for you. Every day I come, there is a meal served whenever I require it, in the form I require it, and I see the person doing it, and I have never done it in my life. I'm taking for granted. It's a chore. I wake up and I go back. The bed is done. The clothes go into the machine. They come out. They are dried. They are ironed, and they come back on the rack in my room, in my cupboard. The cycle goes. I am not touching anything. I need to acknowledge. I need to acknowledge. Earlier days, you sleep on cotton mattress or on spring bed. It gives you, ultimately, it causes you spinal problem. Somebody brought out orthopedic mattress, which takes the curvature of your body, and you get up without having a ache in your back. I have to be grateful. Aware, not aware. But this is the first elements of right living start from having a sense of gratitude. Put the text, please.
Religion educates you to acknowledge the benevolence that nature provides you.
1 minute,
And
1
to
minute, 1
realize
minute,
your-
1 minute. Previous paragraph I want, please. Sorry.
You'll give me. You have to give me a minute.
I know it's read, so I will read. Just put the previous paragraph, please.
You just want me to highlight it, or you want me to read it out?
No, I'll read. Put the thing, and I'll ask you what to highlight.
Okay. Here we go.
Yeah. Highlight the whole paragraph. The moment you're born, the world provides you with everything that you need. Understand, the world means society along with the world. All the people who work for you, please understand, you will never want to take their jobs. Neither will you want your children to take their jobs. Neither will you allow your children to accept the compensation you're paying for their job. Understand that. Oxygen to breathe, mother's milk, the right temperature within and without, pressure inside and outside, and countless things. You become totally indebted to the world. If you are aware, you're indebted to the world. You're indebted to the people who serve you and who you believe you are paying. You cannot compensate for their lifetime commitment to your life by the payments that you are making. You are always shortchanging them. It's just market forces that allows you to do it. In America, in other countries, in America it is official. In India, it's what is it called? It's informal. What is the gripe? In America, I'm talking about payment. What is the gripe? The gripe
Gripe.
is, what is the gripe? I'm talking about payment.
I don't understand the question.
In America, when you employ something, there is a minimum wage, no?
Yes,
There's
yes,
a cut off minimum wage, no? I don't know what in different states is different, no?
yes. It's
No,
about
now it's 15. Now it's $15.
They are trying to make it legislate, no? I don't
No,
know if
it's
the
come
legislation has come.
$15.
Has it been legislated? They are
Yes,
trying
that's
to
the office.
legislate because it was $6, $7. The what is it called? The pizza guy gets $6, $7. I don't know.
In New
Trying to
York
legislate.
State was $8.
8, that's what I thought. They're trying to legislate and people are resisting at $15. So when you're a recipient You want the $15. When you're a payer, you are saying, I can't afford, I cannot run my business. India is the same thing. Because the demand supply situation is in your favor. So therefore, you are reluctant to pay. So whatever you are paying is because demand supply situation allows you to pay that kind of thing, but that fellow is spending his whole life doing that. You will not want it. So therefore, you're indebted to the person who is bringing the pizza to you. You're indebted to the guy who is mowing your lawn. You must therefore maintain a sense of gratitude through your life and serve the world, serve society, serve one and all. This is the first of the elements of right living. Why is it called first of the elements of right living? Attitude of service maintains your spiritual well-being. Why is it called the first of the elements of right living?
Because it makes us, first we need to be aware of what
It is
we've
called
received.
the elements of right living because right living in turn animates for you the joy and the satisfaction that you are seeking. You have your own idea of how to extract joy and satisfaction out of life. You are not getting what you want. You are getting frustration, anger, disappointment, distress, and despondency. You are suffering on this because you have not logged into life with the correct attitude. You can't log into life with the correct attitude and have adverse consequences. It's not possible. I repeat, the whole book is agnostic. It may be highly moral and highly spiritual, but factually it is agnostic. Elements of right living are the fundamental building blocks of prosperity, happiness, and progress. These constitute that if these promote whatever promotes happiness, prosperity, and progress necessarily is correct. Whatever does not is incorrect. So the first of the elements of right living is the attitude of service. Attitude of service which maintains your spiritual well-being, which maintains your well-being. The Bhagavad Gita says it is criminal to consume the resources of the world without contributing. Collectively, we know what is happening. We are consuming faster than the earth can replenish. That you know. And we are consuming from each other instead of offering to each other. Therefore, doomsday clock is now 90 seconds away from doomsday. Bhagavad Gita says it is criminal to consume the resources of the world without contributing. He who eats without producing is verily a thief. See, in a gross manner, you understand. There was a guy, embarrassingly, the joker was a Parsi fellow. Because I am Parsi, out of curiosity, he came and sat in Prempuri Ashram, where when physical classes were going on. So he came for 4, 5, 6 sessions. And he said, I want to do this, I want to do that. Anyway, I humored the fellow. After about 5 or 6 sessions, he came to me. Okay, why is this lady, Sonal, are you there, my dear? Sonal. I don't know if Sonal is there. So the system over there is that there is a collection box. So in that collection box, they put because this is India, if you ask them to put in collection box, fellows will put 100 rupees. Because they believe that what is there, it's a tip. But the idea of the collection box is we have to pay for the hall. And the hall is given to us at discount. But we have to pay for the hall and for staff, etc. So 500 rupees is sort of, for the month, is a sort of cutoff. So she follows up. Okay. sir, have you paid, have you not, etc. The 500 bucks. This fellow came and he says, "Okay, they're asking 500 rupees. I said, yeah. Other places it is free. Maybe, but even if it is free, don't you think you should contribute? No, it is free. Again, he is saying, but they're asking 500 bucks. I said, yes, this hall, etc. has to be paid. But other places it is free. I said, what are you trying to do? 6 times he mentions other places it is free, implying that why should I pay 500 rupees? Why is this lady asking me for 500 bucks? I mean, you don't want to pay, don't pay. 6 times he says. I told him, you're offending me. You're coming over here, you want to hear all this, and you believe it's your birthright to have it free of charge just because somewhere it is free of charge. He does not understand. He walked out and he never came back. He who eats without producing is verily a thief. He is permanently in a state of extreme mental agitation. There is another place where my colleague takes classes. He's taking classes now also. Now it is virtual. Those days it will take physical class like all of us took. It may have been a small audience, but he took it diligently. He communicates well. He's a student. I mean, he's a graduate from the academy. And he lives in the academy and comes to Mumbai only for the classes. Because they want to know what the Bhagavad Gita is. They want to know what Bhajagovintam is, etc. He comes only for the classes. He comes from the academy, takes the class, and he goes back. And I gave him a lift on the way back to the academy when I go there on Saturday. We have a mutual arrangement. Happy to give him a lift. Asking him. He says that I asked him whether, because students are not paid by the academy for what they have to travel. They travel for official work, they are paid. If they not travel, they go for this teaching, they are not paid. They do it, that's tradition, they do it from themselves. He is not able to make his what is it called? What they contribute to him, he is not able to make the travel, what is it called? Travel expenses. Then he travels third class and bus, not traveling in Uber. He is not able to make travel expenses. He says, okay, if you don't give me a lift back, I'll be out of pocket. And they want to hear the highest philosophy. He who eats without producing is a thief. Nobody understands. We take for granted. Now we go to the next paragraph. But only read first four, five lines. Yeah. Read.
Nature provides you. And to realize your obligation, duty, responsibility to repay. You are best when you are best at repaying. So must you perform your obligatory duties.
It's not on my screen,
People take their
Aditya.
duties as a heavy burden resting on their shoulders. Few realize that the greatest contributions of humanity can never compensate for the largesse of nature.
Just hold it there, hold it there, hold it there. Hold it. Religion educates you to acknowledge the benevolence that nature provides you and to realize your obligation, duty, responsibility to repay. You are best when you are best at repaying. These are the words of Muhammad. He is best amongst you who is best at repaying. Words of Muhammad. And so must you perform your obligatory duties. Now, I'm going to put up on the screen what we have done 2-3 times before, that we must be aware of the gifts of nature and of grace. If you are aware of the gifts of nature and of grace, you will stop complaining. So I'm fast tracking because we have done it. Aditya, when you put this on the video, it will be there, no?
Yes, uncle.
So you have time when you review it. It's already there for you to. It's already there for you to reflect on. So number one, I'm fast tracking. We have to finish it today in half an hour. That the world is a construct of a multitude of laws. This is a gift. Why is it a gift? World is a construct of a multitude of laws. Why is it a gift?
Because it's not random. So we know if we do something, we know what the outcome would be. So it's
Because yeah, where there is law, there is reliability. Why are you happy? Why are you unconcerned when you go in certain areas and concerned when you go in certain areas? Your lawlessness there is no reliability. Why do you buy one gadget versus another gadget? When you buy a washing machine, you want reliability. When you buy TV, you want reliability because you can rely on it. Because that is being engineered correctly. So world is a construct of a multitude of laws. Individually and collectively, they function as cause and effect. And all are eternal and irrefragable. That means they can be relied on permanently. That's why we study the eternities. Eternity is the gold standard and the sovereign guarantee of safety, happiness, growth, and liberation. Eternities. They carry with them sovereign guarantee. Never will they let you down. Therefore, they are 100% reliable. And there is no pocket of randomness. Therefore, there is no scope for luck, good or bad. What is the implication of that? There is no pocket of randomness. Therefore, there is no scope for luck, good or bad. What is the implication of that?
Outcomes are a result of our actions only.
The implication is that you are where you are because of the way you have played your cards, full stop. You make your fortune and you make your misfortune. You are the author. You alone are the author of your fortune and misfortune or misfortune. Nothing else. Nothing else means nothing else. What are you doing? Sarah, all
Yes,
the
brother.
brothers and sisters around you, what are they doing? You are
Um,
making a wrong assumption yourself.
yes,
What are you doing?
blaming others, people, situations,
You are saying
circumstances.
what to do. I am born in this situation. There are people who are born in pockets of society where they are shackled. They don't have the liberty to exercise their own destiny. Are you not in a society which doesn't allow women freedom?
Somewhat, yes, brother.
Yeah. So whatever you are, whatever you are doing, everybody is shackled and blaming environment around. How come you're born in that environment is my question. Random.
No, brother, past consequences
Then
of
why are you
past
complaining?
actions.
Why are you complaining? And what are you doing to ensure that next time around you won't get into that mess? See, this is the beauty of life, that you may be in some mess now, you ensure you don't get into mess again. Or is the quality of your thoughts and action just now, are they going to liberate you from next time round, or they going to hold you in shackles? You just ask. Nobody is born in the gutter as a lotteryman. Nobody is born in what is it called? Silver spoon in the mouth as a matter of lottery. Because we are all emotional, we have not invested in our intellect in the past. We are born emotional people. Those who are invested in intellect are born rational. The environment you are born in, the environment you are hostage to, is of your making. It's not random. Whatever trauma you have gone through, have other people not gone through the same trauma? Sarah, I'm asking
Yes, brother.
you and your colleagues, many people are traumatized, no? So
Yes, brother.
whatever trauma they have gone through, other people have not gone through same trauma.
Similar, sometimes worse.
Similar. So are they all in the same mental condition as your friends and everybody else is? Are they not got on with their lives and happy and cheerful? So how come they have been able to get out of it and other people are in a morass? You're personalizing the whole thing. All this distress is personalization of situation. Human being is objective. He steps apart and understands this is happening. Then what can I do to get? Why should I allow it to get to me? I am master of my destiny. Why should I allow it to get to me? You can't jockey your memory. You're allowing your memory, mind to have any kind of memory. You're victim of that memory. This is the law of life. Don't blame anybody else. Don't blame the stars. Don't blame situations. Don't blame the society you're in. You are in that society because you have played the cards that hold you captive to that society. Now you play your cards correct. Don't perpetuate this cycle with your present attitude. Observe your present attitude to understand whether you're going to perpetuate this problem you raised for yourself or you're going to get out of it. You're blaming others for holding your freedom hostage, and you are insisting that other people to alter their mindset to suit you. Why can't you respect them and have confidence in what you're doing yourself? Why do you want their approval? I don't know why you want other people's approval for what you believe is right. You do what you have to do. Adapt. You're coming to America. When you come to America, you must adapt to that country. Why are you imposing on America some other things which they feel uncomfortable? You don't have to compromise yourself. Why are you being so insistent that you're insisting that they must take you as you are? Unnecessary. Little bit of adaptation required. There is no pocket of randomness. Therefore, don't blame anybody else except you have the humility and courage to acknowledge that. Unless you have the humility and courage to acknowledge that, there is no salvation. So Vedanta is not, what is it called? Arms around your shoulders, giving you everything will be all right. Nothing will be all right unless you change your mindset. This is the harsh reality of life. Nothing is going to be all right unless you're willing to change yourself by yourself. And you will have to go through the pain of doing it. That is why so many people listen to these classes, and these classes are not a balm that soothes your nerve. These classes cause you pain, hurt, but they say that I'm sorry, I need the pain. I mean, I don't need the pain, but I have to go through it because on the other side of the pain is my liberation. I need to hear this, but it's painful to hear because all your alibis are shattered. That I am victim. You're not victim. You're not victim. The alibi is shattered. But if you have the courage, then you understand I needed to go through this. On the other side of this pain is my liberation. You're grateful. Point 3. The investigation of this phenomenal world by scientists is a work in progress. Much is still to be understood and discovered, but we should be grateful for the scientific progress as it has happened and is happening at a very fast pace. We should be grateful. Without this scientific progress, we won't be able to take this class. Today, you're thousands of miles apart, but because of technology, it's as good as being in the same room. Now, the important thing is science is still a work in progress, but the investigation of spiritual laws by philosophers is complete, tested, and verified. And I forgot to put in, along with the spiritual laws, is the laws of practical living, which is Vedanta. That's why it's time tested and proven. So you don't have to experiment with it. You just log into it and your safety is guaranteed. And the highest of human questions are answered very categorically, no half-baked answer. So what is your relationship between man and God? Tattvamasi, I am that, you are God. but unfortunately forgotten that you're there. What is the relationship between God, world, and the God and God? Brahma Satyam Jagat Mithya. Brahman alone is this world, in fact, is an illusion. The bottom line, two-line answer to the highest question in life. The deconstruction of mystery and magic of Maya is available through the comparison inferences from the observations of dream and deep sleep. It is not the ambit of this class, but Monday classes has done this. That however mysterious it is, without dream and deep sleep, because we are able to audit the lower states of consciousness. When we audit the lower states of consciousness from the higher platform of the waker's observation, then you're able to understand the whole thing is projection. But this is not the scope of this classroom. Lower one is the scope of this classroom. The proprietary gifts which are available only to humans. That's why they are proprietary. A gross intellect to observe, reason, and decide, and to control the emotions and desires of the mind. Unfortunately, you have an alibi, I have an alibi, that society has not instituted a official institutional program to build the intellect, which Swamiji has done in the academy, and the best he can do is to use today's technology, offer it through e-learning. We know how you build the intellect. We know how do you build the intellect. Generic way of building intellect. It doesn't matter. You build the intellect by two things. Number one, not taking anything for granted, and number two, not questioning everything. But you question in a spirit of inquiry. You question in a spirit of respect. Don't question that in a spirit that I don't think it is correct, so therefore I don't want to buy into it. If you don't think it is correct, you cannot learn. Correct spirit is, I have not understood this. Just because you don't understand does not mean it is senseless. I have not understood, you ask. First, hear what is being presented. Keep your preconceived notion aside. Hear what is being presented. Struggle to understand it on its own merit. You don't understand, ask. Then you can do what you want. So in this particular case, that's how you build intellect in anything. But here with Swamiji, the field of inquiry is life and its complexity, human nature and its complexity, emotions and its complexity. Field of inquiry is that. So since the field of inquiry is that, not only are you building intellect, but you are building up wisdom. How to live. Intelligence gives you a method of living, earning a living. It doesn't teach you how to live. Everybody earns a living, become arrogant and intolerant, stressed. How to live. That's what we are learning now. By buying into this, you have to remove preconceived notion. And it provides, the intellect has the potential to learn, has the potential to become strong. It doesn't come embedded with knowledge. The subtle intellect is embedded. So you have a subtle intellect, an embedded spiritual insight that intuitively prompts a human to investigate his divine connection. It's naturally built into you. That's a gift. In our conduct in the world, it functions as the voice of conscience, an intuitive sense of right and wrong. So when you violate conscience, you have a sense of remorse. And nobody wants to do something which violates his conscience. But out of arrogance, you say, I don't care. I don't feel guilty. That's because your desire masks it. Next point. The privilege and ability to evolve to perfection and cross over from limited mortality to eternal immortality at warp speed. Sarah,
Yes,
how
brother.
long was despondency?
For me,
Or anybody? I don't want to personalize anything, but you have so many friends. Some of the other, all your friends are in the same boat. How long was
Um,
despondency?
brother,
Years on end.
20 years.
Whatever, years on end. Did it ever appear that it will end? It's a hopeless
No,
case, no?
brother.
Huh? So many things are
No.
tried. So many things are tried. Hopeless case, no?
Yes, brother.
So how long you been with the class?
8 months, I think. 6,
8
7, 8
months.
months.
8 months in the class. What has happened to the despondency?
For mine, brother,
Well,
to that,
whoever
to
applies
something
himself
specific.
like that, why say for me? Your only validation of it. Whoever applies himself in the way it should be applied, you have to apply yourself. That means you have to think about it and get up in the morning. That tapas you have to do. If you actually respect it for what it is worth, what happens to despondency?
Brother, it goes in 2 months.
It goes away. And how you see your tomorrow? How you see your future?
Mm.
You see your future as bright and something to look forward to, or see your future as bleak?
Yes, brother.
Huh? Is it not
Yes.
warp speed? Is it not warp speed?
Yes.
Janma's worth, your despondency is the crystallization of Janma's worth of false thinking, not this. All that is gone in 6 months' time. This is warp speed. And specific to Vedanta class, they are the only body of students that have the privilege of text, teacher, and tuition. That makes self-development leading to self-realization as a viable pursuit in this lifetime. In this lifetime, parallel to your normal activities, you can grasp this. Once you grasp this, automatically there will be a paradigm shift. Automatically everything falls into place. In and through what you do, you repay, you grow, and your spiritual center gets awakened. Becomes front and center. To sidestep this opportunity is the greatest of all loss. To have this quality of teacher, text, and tuition, and to use it for getting along with your partner is the equivalent of going to Harvard, getting a triple degree, and coming home and opening a pizza shop. Shortchanging yourself. Next point. Our thoughts are the only element in our life over which we have the capacity for full control. Cannot control anything else excepting your thoughts. But what is the catch? What is the catch? What is the catch, my friend? You want to control everything else, you cannot control.
So the
You
point
can't
is,
control- you can't control the bias of society. You've been trying for donkey's years. You've been holding rallies for donkey's years, trying to control bias of society. How much traction you made, Sarah? You want to control bias in one area, your other colleagues are wanting to control bias in other areas. How much traction have they made?
Brother, not much.
Externally, there may be something. The laws are already in place that you should not be biased. Have you been able to manage their mind?
No, brother.
The mind has become more obstinate. It's not cooperating, other people's mind. So therefore, what is solution? You control your mind. Our thoughts are the only element in our life over which we have capacity for full control. What is the catch?
That we are unable to manage our own minds
Why?
because of poor intellect.
because you have dysfunctional intellect or asleep intellect. But you say, I'm a successful person. See, that is the problem. That is the problem. Why are you successful and morose at the same time? You can't control your thought because you don't have intellect. You can control intellect. You won't divorce after 25 years. If you can control your thought, you're not able to control. So all the gain you made on one side, you lose on the other side. Our thoughts are the only elements in our life over which we have capacity for full control, potential. That potential, the thoughts are generated by the mind. The control has to be done by the intellect. Each thought must pass through a filter of observation. If is it beneficial, you allow it in. If it's not beneficial, you throw it out. It's not done. There is no guard that through which the thought passes through a filter. Anything you entertain. Those thoughts you should not entertain, you entertain. Your human being at the mental level is the only, it is, we are mentally masochistic. What does it mean? At the mental level, we are masochistic. What does it mean? We are deliberately entertaining and pampering thoughts which will come and harm us. Then we revel in them. Jealousy, beware of jealousy, the green-eyed monster, it mocks the flesh that it feeds on. Our entertainment we get out of grief, out of jealousy, out of greed, out of remorse, we get entertainment out of these things. We embrace them. That means we enjoy self-inflicted pain. That's what it means. Absurd.
Sir, why does that happen?
Because you are not filtering.
No, as in, why is it fun, sir?
My dear, what is your joy in life? Your joy in life, one part of your joy is to say that people around me who I have relied on are not doing the right thing. I have been done wrong by. So that criticism is your joy. This is masochism. You must catch it. The mind is a perverse instrument. Sitting on a pulpit and complaining, okay, I have done this, I don't deserve this. Look what that person is doing. Look what he's doing. What is this? This is ostentation. This is this, this is that. This is entertainment value. So you keep on doing it. Now you are hostage to that memory. Because intellect is not filtering. Filter it. Then you'll understand. Get thee behind me, Satan, out. But you embrace it and you fortify it. Now you're stuck. See, cynical people, why they remain cynical? They are entertained by that cynicism. They suspect everybody else's motive. They are entertained by it. This is masochism. People who are despondent, they wallow in their own grief. People who are worriers are very uncomfortable if they have nothing to worry. Generate some worry. And afterwards, of course, then you're hostage. You don't know. We embrace infection. When you don't have intellect, you embrace, you entertain, you embrace infection. This is what is happening. The mind is infected. Our thoughts are the only elements in your life over which you have the potential capacity for full control. So you require, the intellect helps you to audit this thought, where is it beneficial or it is detrimental. Detrimental you have to discard, beneficial you have to embrace. Therefore, the quality of life and state of our mind solely depends upon the quality and direction of our thoughts. Full stop. What are your thoughts infused with gratitude. And what is the direction? Is internal. That let me first clean up my act before I point a finger somewhere else. Are your thoughts internal? That my satisfaction lies from being true to my mission in life. What am I doing there? The thoughts are external. Then you want the world to cater to you. Even if it caters to you, it will run out of time. And the way you are conducting yourself, the world will not cater to you. So you get angry and upset. When we stray from natural law, nature provides early warning signs in the form of mental agitation, setbacks of increasing intensity. You are not reading these signals. The day you cannot sleep is the day when you have been personally looking at things, personalized things, or you've been self-centered. That's why you cannot sleep. The first day you can't get sleep, you must wake up to the signal. You get a fever, it's a signal. So mental agitation is a signal that you're personalized, you're looking things in an egocentric manner, not reading it. And you're doing it, which will escalate the whole thing. Setbacks of increasing intensity. You're not reading the signal. The only element of our life which is the cause of distress is ego and egocentricity. Understand this is a gift. Understand this is a gift. Why is it a gift? Why
Because
is
you're
it a
being,
gift? I'm asking.
because you're getting warned. It's like a speed breaker. You're warned. It's a warning sign.
It is a gift because if other factors are cause of your distress, how many other factors will you control? It is not possible. However beneficial you are, your children you can't control, husband you can't control, other factors you can't control. So if your well-being is dependent on your ability to control outside factors, is not possible. You will simply go crazy. When does a mother go crazy? If you got 2-3 kids and you want to keep them all pleased, what will be your state, mother's state? You have 2-3 kids and you want to keep them all pleased. What will be the mother's state? First of all, it is not possible. When mother's state is present, so your own kids you cannot keep happy. What are you going to do? So at any point of time, if you are disturbed, there is only one cause, that is ego and egocentric desire. There is no second cause. So that is the gift. So you focus on the ego and egocentricity, call the bluff, clean that up, and your distress will go. It's an extreme gift which we don't understand. Those who are applying it are now struck with wonder. The way you're looking at things, that is the cause of your problem, not what has happened. Therefore, the source of any distress is ego and egocentric desire in some form. These have to be effaced by the infusion of truth and wisdom. You must have the humility and courage to acknowledge that. There's the user-friendliness of the law of karma. The gift of self-effort means law of karma is designed for redemption, not retribution. You are punished by your action and you're rewarded for your attitude. You employ the right attitude from this point onwards, you neutralize that and you'll enjoy a better life. So it's redemption. The door of return is never shut. No matter how far you have strayed, it is possible to get back, which you have realized for yourself once you log into this knowledge. Most times there is an opportunity to correct oneself before consequences catch up. It's not you put your finger in a fire and it gets burnt. It is not that instantaneous. Nature gives you a long rope. The body gives you a long rope before it backs up. Relationships last quite a while, although you're abusing it. So if you correct it, you can resurrect a broken relationship. The opposite never happens. We are never put into jeopardy and have to suffer which nature later makes up with benevolence and support. Nature doesn't make a mistake and say, I'm sorry, I made a mistake, I'll make up for it. Doesn't happen like that. At the time of death, nature acts as a custodian of our efforts in terms of talent, temperament, wisdom, and credits. So whatever it is that we have struggled for is held in good faith and is held in custody for the next cycle. So that is why you are born in favorable circumstances. So whatever, we cannot finish our journey in this life. So whatever progress you have made is held in good. It's like a safety deposit locker. It's held to your account faithfully, so that when you next get into your next cycle, that is the platform from which you start. Your tuition becomes your intuition, your information becomes your transformation, your knowledge becomes your wisdom. That is a gift. Otherwise, every time you start from scratch, it is impossible. Think about these things, and the last part of it we'll do next week. Thank you.
Thank you very much.